I left my family because my parents gave me an ultimatum to study a different subject, so I left home, earned money, enrolled in the subject I wanted, and my parents came running when they found out I had my own company. When I was 17, my parents sat me down at the dinner table with what they called a serious conversation. We had a lot of those in our house. My father, Kenneth, was an engineer. Straight-laced, practical, obsessed with planning. My mother, Elaine, taught chemistry at a local community college. She was the more emotionally expressive of the two, but when she was disappointed in you, she made sure you felt it like a cold wind. I was the only child. The one who was supposed to carry their legacy forward. And I'd always known what they wanted for me. Medicine. It was talked about like a fact of life, not a possibility. You've always been good at science, Dad would say. Imagine the kind of life you could have, Mom would add, eyes full of rehearsed pride. I wasn't against the idea because it was hard. I knew I could do it. But I didn't want it. I wanted to study graphic design. Digital art. Branding. The way visual language shaped behavior. I loved it like other kids loved music or sports. I studied billboards on the highway, color palettes in magazine ads, website layouts in my spare time. I tried telling them that once. That I saw a future in it. That I could build something real. They looked at me like I had just said I wanted to become a professional magician. That night at the table, Dad folded his hands and spoke first. We've reviewed tuition estimates. Elaine nodded along. We're prepared to pay for 4 years. But there are conditions. I could feel it coming. The lead weight in the pit of my stomach grew heavier with each word. You'll study something useful. Engineering. Pre-med, computer science at the very least. And no switching majors halfway through, Mom added. I looked between them. And if I don't agree? You'll have to find your own way, Dad said. We're not funding a fantasy. The room went still. It wasn't just an ultimatum. It was a line in the sand. I could have said yes. Could have swallowed my dream and played along until it was too late to change. I knew people who'd done that. Who lived someone else's life while their own dreams withered. But I couldn't do it. I'm not taking your money, I said quietly. And I'm not studying something I don't love. They stared at me. Shocked, like I'd broken some unspoken contract. You'll regret this, Dad said flatly. Mom didn't say anything. Just got up and started clearing the dishes. That night, I packed a bag. 2 days later, I was gone. I didn't have a car. Just a backpack, my old laptop, and $280 I'd saved from part-time work over the summer. It wasn't enough. Not even close. But it was all I had. I crashed on a friend's couch for a few weeks, Jake, from high school. His family didn't ask questions, which I appreciated. I told them I was figuring some things out. Which was true. I just didn't have any answers yet. I took a job at a 24-hour diner, working the graveyard shift. It was exhausting, greasy, and thankless. But it paid just enough to cover rent when I moved into a shared apartment with 2 strangers and no insulation. During the day, I freelanced. At first, it was small stuff, flyers for local events, logos for student startups, Instagram templates for wellness coaches. It was chaotic and inconsistent, but slowly, I started building a portfolio. I slept 4 hours a night. Ate on a tight budget. Rode the bus everywhere. But I was free. And every time I opened my laptop and created something that made someone go, whoa, that's exactly what I wanted, I felt like I was building a foundation no one could take away from me. It took me 2 years to save enough to enroll in a part-time design program at a local art school. No one helped me. No one loaned me anything. I filled out every scholarship application I could find, worked freelance gigs like my life depended on it, because it did, and kept pushing. I didn't tell my parents. Not because I was being spiteful, but because I didn't think they'd want to know. We hadn't spoken since the night I walked out. No birthdays. No holidays. Just silence. And to be honest, that silence hurt less than pretending we were okay. Then one night, I got a LinkedIn message from a recruiter. Small agency. Looking for a junior designer. Loved my portfolio. It wasn't much, just contract work to start, but it led to something bigger. By 24, I was working full-time as a designer. By 26, I had enough freelance clients that I quit the job and started my own creative agency, North Form Studio. It wasn't a massive operation. Just me and 2 friends from design school. But we were scrappy, talented, and obsessive about doing good work. We specialized in branding for up-and-coming businesses, clean, modern, emotionally sharp design that made our clients stand out. Our first 6 months were rough. I lived off savings. But then the referrals started pouring in. 1 startup. Then 3. Then a VC firm reached out. And suddenly, we were profitable. The morning it happened, I was eating cold cereal at my desk, juggling 3 client projects and trying to fix a bug in a brand style guide we just delivered. The studio wasn't glamorous, just a 2-room space above a coffee shop with thin walls and a view of a gas station, but it was ours. Every inch had been built from scratch. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hesitated. Spam, probably. But something told me to answer. Hello? There was a pause. Then, it's Mom. My spoon froze in midair. I hadn't heard that voice in 7 years. Not even once. It took a while to find your number, she said quickly, like she thought I might hang up at any moment. You don't exactly make yourself easy to reach. I didn't respond. I know it's been a long time, she said. But, we saw something. Your name. On a website. North Form Studio. Of course. The VC firm we worked with had published a case study. Our logo. My name. You started your own company, she added, trying to sound light. That's amazing. My heart pounded in my chest. Not from excitement. From caution. Because I knew where this was going. I'm proud of what I built, I said, evenly. Without your help. I know, she said. And then, after a pause, that's why we're calling. We. Of course. She handed the phone to Dad. His voice was calm, practiced, but strained. Like he was trying not to sound like someone who once said, "We're not funding a fantasy." We heard you've done well, he said. I have, I said simply. And we're, in a bit of a situation. There it was. The pitch. He explained that he'd taken early retirement, but the investments hadn't gone as planned. Some medical issues. A business loan gone wrong. They were reassessing options. You understand how tough things are right now, he said. I didn't answer. Then came the part they'd clearly rehearsed. We were hoping, if you had the means, you could help. Just a short-term loan. Not much. We're not asking for charity. I almost laughed. Not much? When they threw me out, they hadn't asked how I'd eat. How I'd find housing. How I'd afford classes. I'd clawed my way through every stage of life on fumes and caffeine and freelance checks that barely cleared in time. And now that I had something, they remembered my number. That night, I called Jake, the same friend who'd let me crash on his couch all those years ago. He still lived in town. Still ran his bike shop. Still made the best grilled cheese I'd ever tasted. We sat on his patio as the sun went down, the air smelling faintly of cut grass and engine oil. So, he asked, handing me a beer. They want money. He snorted. Of course they do. I haven't heard from them in 7 years. Not one call. Not even a text. Jake leaned back in his chair. You gonna give it to them? I didn't answer right away. I don't know. Why not? Because I don't owe them anything. But part of me still wants them to see what I built. Jake looked at me. They already see it. That's why they're here. But they don't respect it. They see a bank account, not a person. That stuck with me. A few days later, I called them back. Dad answered. I thought about what you said, I told him. There was a hopeful silence on the other end. I'm not giving you money. The silence broke. What? I built this company without a cent from either of you. When I needed help, you gave me ultimatums. You made it clear that love came with conditions. Don't be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic. I'm being honest. He tried again, shifting gears. You have a responsibility. No, I said, cutting him off. I don't. You made it clear back then. I was on my own. And I made peace with that. You don't get to rewrite the rules now. He didn't yell. He didn't beg. He just sighed and hung up. I stood in my office, phone still pressed to my ear, hand shaking, not from fear. From relief. The next week, I got an email. From my mom this time. Subject line, "We didn't know you'd go this far." She wrote. "We thought we were pushing you to be practical. We didn't realize we were pushing you away. We're sorry. We didn't expect you to succeed like this. We're proud of you. We just don't know how to say it." I read it 3 times. Then I closed it. And I didn't write back. When I was younger, I used to imagine the moment I made it would be loud, cheering, flashing lights, magazine covers. But it wasn't like that. It was an email from a former client. Just wanted to say thank you. That rebrand helped us secure our second round of funding. You have no idea how much it meant. And then another from a local nonprofit. We'd love to work with you. We don't have much of a budget, but we've seen what you've done. Would you be open to meeting? And then a call, from a major startup accelerator, asking if I would speak on a panel about creative entrepreneurship. That was the moment I realized something. Success wasn't a billboard. It was trust. People trusted what I'd built. Not because it was flashy, but because it worked. And that felt better than any trophy ever could. By the time I was 28, North Form Studio had grown to a team of 9. We had moved into a larger space downtown. Real desks, a proper conference room, even a little kitchen where someone was always burning toast. We weren't a giant agency, but we didn't want to be. Our clients came to us for our voice, our attention to detail, our refusal to treat design like decoration. We built brands that made people feel. And in a world full of noise, that mattered. We hired 2 interns from a local art school. I paid them more than I made in my first year freelancing. Because I remembered what it felt like to be treated like your time was worthless. I swore I'd never run a place like that. Meanwhile, my parents stayed quiet. For a while, at least. Then one day, a letter arrived. Not an email. Not a call. A letter. Handwritten. It was from my dad. He didn't ask for money this time. He wrote about how proud he was. How he'd started reading about branding and creative strategy so he could understand what I actually did. He talked about his old job, how bored he'd been, how he'd always envied people who got to build something of their own. He ended the letter with, "I know I don't deserve a second chance. But I'm hoping you might offer one anyway." I read it 3 times. I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. I just felt still. It was the first time he didn't sound like he was trying to win. He sounded like he was trying to understand. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in years. I visited my old neighborhood. I didn't go to their house. Just walked the blocks around it. Past the school where I doodled logos in the margins of my notebooks. Past the library where I used to check out design magazines and pretend I belonged to the world they showed. It felt distant. Like a movie set built to look like a place I once lived. But the fear? The sadness? Gone. I realized I didn't hate them anymore. I just didn't need them anymore. When I finally replied to my dad's letter, I kept it simple. "Thank you for writing. I'm glad you're learning about what I do. That means something. But I need time. Please respect that." He didn't write back. But a few weeks later, I got another letter. From my mom. She enclosed a photo of me at 5 years old, wearing a paper crown, holding a hand-drawn birthday card I'd made for her. On the back of the photo, she wrote, "We didn't know how to nurture the kind of dream you had. We thought we were protecting you. But I see now, we were protecting the wrong things. That one stayed with me. It didn't fix anything. But it was something. Maya and I had been talking about moving, somewhere quieter, slower. Maybe a place with a yard, where we could plant vegetables or adopt a dog. She never pressured me. She loved what I'd built as much as I did. But I knew we were both looking for something deeper. Something rooted. One afternoon, she asked, "Do you think you'll ever invite them over?" It took me a while to answer. "Maybe," I said. "One day. When I'm not doing it out of guilt or curiosity. When I'm doing it because I want to." "That's fair," she said. And kissed my shoulder. My parents didn't respond to my letter. And for a while, I was okay with that. I'd said what I needed to say. Clear. Firm. No invitation, no condemnation. Just boundaries. But silence, once you've healed enough to listen without flinching, takes on new meaning. It stops being threatening. It just becomes quiet. I learned to live in that quiet. Life moved on. Northform took on a major contract with an international footwear brand. Nothing too corporate, but big enough that people in the industry started using our name in the same sentence as the agencies I used to idolize. We hired 2 more full-time designers. I started teaching a night class at the same art school I once fought so hard to attend. On the first day, I told the students, "This isn't just about learning Photoshop or typography. This is about learning how to fight for your voice in a world that will try to drown it out." Some of them looked confused. A few nodded. One of them, Jordan, a quiet kid with a shaved head and a backpack covered in pins, raised their hand. "What if no one ever listens?" I smiled. "They will. You just have to outlast the silence." About a month later, Dylan, one of our junior designers, knocked on my office door. "There's someone here to see you," he said. "Didn't have an appointment. But they said you're their son." My stomach tightened. I walked out into the front area, and there they were, Elaine and Kenneth, standing awkwardly near our client wall. They looked older. Smaller. My mom clutched her purse like it was armor. My dad's hair had thinned and gone completely white. "Hi," I said. They both looked up. My mother smiled first. "We were in town," she said. "Thought we'd see the place." I nodded slowly. "Okay," I said. "But we're on a schedule." They followed me as I gave them the briefest of tours, our workspace, the project wall, the small kitchen with the espresso machine that no one really knew how to use. My dad looked at the mood board for our latest campaign. "You built all this," he said. I looked at him. "Yes. From scratch." He nodded. "I didn't think it was possible," he said. "Not really." My mom chimed in. "We didn't understand what you were doing back then. We thought we were helping you avoid disappointment." "You weren't," I said gently. "You were trying to control it." They both went quiet. We stood in the middle of the office, surrounded by creative sketches and half-finished logo drafts, in a space filled with everything they once said wasn't real. And I wasn't angry. I was just tired. Later, over coffee, we sat on a bench outside the studio. No big speeches. No emotional apologies. Just 3 people figuring out how to exist in the same space again. Eventually, my mother asked, "Do you hate us?" "No," I said. "But I don't trust you yet." She nodded. "That's fair." My dad didn't say much. But when we stood up to leave, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was an old sketch of mine, one I made in high school, on printer paper, with Sharpie and colored pencils. A concept for a fictional shoe company. Clean lines. Modern. Handwritten notes in the margins. "You left this behind," he said. I kept it. I took the paper, looked at it. I hadn't seen it in over a decade. "I still remember this," I said. He nodded. "It was the first time I realized you were seeing something we weren't." I didn't invite them to my house. Not yet. But I gave them my number. A real one. I told them they could call sometimes, if they wanted. But that I'd set the tone. I wouldn't talk about money, or the business, or things they wanted from me. Only memories. And honesty. They agreed. And then they left. That night, I sat on the floor of our living room, the old sketch resting on my lap, Maya beside me. "Do you feel better?" she asked. "I don't know," I said. "But I feel done waiting." Waiting for what? For them to get it. For them to be proud the way I needed when I was 18. She nodded. "You don't need that anymore." "No," I said quietly. "I don't." By the time I turned 30, I no longer looked over my shoulder. Not for approval. Not for validation. Not even for old ghosts. The business had stabilized. We weren't just surviving anymore, we were thriving. Our client list had grown from local coffee shops and startups to national campaigns and international consulting work. But the heart of North Form Studio stayed the same. We were the place for people who had something to say, but didn't know how to say it. And, in a way, that was always me. The kid whose voice had been talked over, dismissed, rerouted toward safer paths. The adult who turned silence into strategy, rejection into revenue. My parents called occasionally. We kept it surface level. No requests. No pressure. Just stories. They didn't ask for help anymore, and I didn't offer it. Not because I was holding on to anything, but because that wasn't the relationship we had now. It wasn't parental. It was cordial. Friendly. Distant. And I was okay with that. Some people you grow away from and never return to. Others, you return to, but never fully open the door again. One day, my mother asked if she could visit the studio again, this time with a friend. "She wants to meet the person who did all that amazing work for Cedar and Pine," she said, referring to a boutique hotel rebrand we had done the previous year. I agreed, hesitantly. They came on a Friday afternoon. Her friend, a quiet woman named Marjorie, was charming and curious, asking me about our process, our clients, our team. "You must have had a wonderful foundation growing up," she said. My mother hesitated before answering. "Not exactly," she said. "He built this in spite of us. Not because of us." That stopped me. I looked at her. She met my gaze. And for the first time, there was no defense in her eyes. Just acknowledgement. Maybe even respect. That night, I found the old sketch again, the one Dad had kept all those years. I'd framed it, quietly, and hung it in the hallway just outside my office. Not to gloat. To remember. The notes scribbled in the margins. The early concepts. The ambition that didn't need permission to exist. It wasn't perfect. But it was mine. And it had gotten me here. When people ask about my success now, I don't tell them about the VC contracts or the awards or the growing client list. I tell them this. At 17, I walked away from the only support I had because I knew it wasn't love if it came with a condition. Everything after that? It was built on that choice. And that's the part they always pause on. Not the money. The decision. Because anyone can dream. But not everyone walks away from the people who try to bury it before it has a chance to live. Years later, I was asked to give a commencement speech at the very design school that once felt like an impossible dream. I stood on stage in front of hundreds of students, faculty, and families, some beaming, some bored, some already filming on their phones. I told them the truth. That I was rejected before I was hired. Dismissed before I was respected. That I had been told no, over and over, by the people who were supposed to say yes first. And that I'd said yes to myself anyway. At the end of the speech, a girl approached me with tears in her eyes. "I think I'm about to walk away from my family," she said. "They want me to be someone I'm not." I didn't offer a cliché. Or a tidy answer. I just said, then walk fast. But walk smart. And build so well that they hear you even after they stop listening. She nodded. She understood. Now, when I look at everything I've built, the studio, the team, the life I share with Maya, it no longer feels like a response to the past. It feels like its own story. Whole. Unapologetic. Free. They once said design wasn't real. That it wouldn't lead anywhere. That it couldn't be a life. They were wrong. And I don't need them to admit it. Because I already proved it. To them. To the world. But most importantly, to myself. Thank you all for watching the video, and see you soon.